Thanks for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Jaein in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. Plans are in place to increase investment in next-generation technology and innovative industries to create more jobs and revamp the country's industrial landscape. The Trade Ministry submits its renegotiation plan to amend the Korea-US FTA to the National Assembly on Monday. These stories and more coming right up. Korea's Trade Ministry has submitted a plan to support innovative growth over the next 5 years. It believes Korea's small and mid-sized firms in the era of the fourth industrial revolution could create hundreds of thousands of jobs in the years to come. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
In a report to the National Assembly's Committee on Trade, Industry, Energy, SMEs, and Startups on Monday, the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy unveiled plans to support innovation by supporting new industries, small and medium-sized companies, and industries in provincial areas for balanced growth. Through the industrial policy reforms that focus on innovative growth, it's aiming to create more than 300,000 jobs by 2022. For the creation of new industries, it has selected 5 main sectors for support, which includes future mobility, superconnectivity, renewable energy, increasing lifespans in our fast-aging society, and the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. The ministry says it aims to make it possible for autonomous vehicles to operate on expressways by 2020 and increase the number of electric vehicles to 350,000 by 2022. It will also establish a $275 million fund to increase investment related to the fourth industrial revolution, such as smart home appliances that incorporate Internet of Things technology. The ministry says it'll increase the number of medium-sized IT companies in Korea and boost the number of innovative clusters and tech convergence districts to 15 by 2022. The ministry plans to unveil detailed measures by sector during the first 3 months of next year. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
The government plans to set up a fund worth 1 trillion won, or roughly $920 million to restructure small and medium-sized enterprises. The Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service signed an MOU on Monday with 8 state-run and retail banks, including Korea Development Bank, to raise $460 million by the end of next February. The remaining half of the fund will be raised from private investors, including private equity funds. With the fund, the government hopes to encourage more private investors to actively take part in corporate restructuring instead of simply reacting to government-led initiatives. Earlier this month, Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon said the government will engage in constant, preemptive, and market-centered corporate restructuring. The Moon Jae-in government is stepping up investments to bolster the safety of Korea's existing nuclear power plants and help phase them out in the long run. According to the government's latest nuclear R&D blueprint, Seoul plans to spend roughly $63.2 million next year on nuclear safety and reactor decommissioning technology. This is a 10% bump compared to funds allocated this year, while taking up more than 1/3 of the government's total nuclear R&D budget for 2018. The plan is in line with the Moon administration's drive to phase out the country's reliance on nuclear power as well as fossil fuels in favor of renewable energy sources. To prepare for the crunch negotiations over amending the Korea-US FTA, the Korean government has been conducting economic feasibility studies and gathering public opinion. And this morning, the Trade Ministry submitted its renegotiation plan to the National Assembly. Our Kim Hae-sung reports.
Korea's Trade Ministry has submitted its plan to renegotiate the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement to the National Assembly. To come up with a plan, the Ministry for Trade, Industry, and Energy has conducted economic feasibility studies on the 5-year-old deal and has gathered opinions from the agricultural and manufacturing sectors through 2 public hearings and 26 rounds of meetings. The report covers the purpose and strategies for the renegotiations and the public hearing results. The Trade Ministry added that it'll protect the country's sensitive industries such as agriculture and livestock and try to reach a mutually beneficial deal by touching on issues like services, investment, products country of origin, and non-tariff measures. The move comes after the leaders of South Korea and the U.S. agreed to speed up the process of amending the trade pact during their summit in Seoul in November. President Trump has complained about the U.S. trade deficit with South Korea, while President Moon Jae-in has said that deficit was limited to products and has been shrinking, while Korea has continued to post large trade deficit in the service sector. The report Monday wraps up the domestic procedures needed before talks with Washington on amendments can officially begin. Specific dates for renegotiations will be announced in the near future. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
If you're watching us in Korea and are a homeowner, you might want to check in with your bank, because starting today, commercial banks are raising their floating rates for mortgage loans in line with the Bank of Korea's tightening stance that began last month. Top Korean lenders will reflect a rise in the cost of funds index, or KOFIX, a benchmark for variable rate mortgages, by raising rates by 0.15 percentage points to a maximum of 4.6%. Korea's central bank raised its key policy rate by a quarter percentage point to 1.5% in November over what is said were clear signs of economic recovery. Still, pricier mortgages in the country, saddled with $1.3 trillion of household debt, is a big concern, with market watchers monitoring the pace of rate hikes by the BOK and the U.S. Federal Reserve. Korea's ratio of domestic demand to GDP ranked fairly low compared to OECD member countries and other emerging economies. According to the National Assembly Budget Office, Korea's domestic demand took up 61.9% of its GDP on average between 1996 to 2015, ranking 27th out of 41 countries. The U.S. had the highest ratio of 88%, followed by Brazil and Japan. Korea's ratio dropped to an average of 56% between 2006 and 2015 as the country's private consumption and investment grew at a slower pace than exports. Experts say with the ratio expected to decline further due to the country's rapidly aging population, it's necessary to boost Korea's productivity and supply capacity. And now, moving on to our coverage of the markets, we have our markets contributor Kathleen Oh joining us on the line. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, Jaein.
All right, so tell us how the local markets performed on the first trading day of the week.
Korean markets started the week on a relatively quiet note today, with little changes as we approach the end of the year. Kospi opened higher from last Friday. However, foreigners and individuals combined sold nearly $300 million on anticipated tax reform in the U.S. Meanwhile, institutions net bought around $250 million. At the closing bell, the Kospi fell 0.01% to close at 2481.88, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq lost 0.17% to finish at 770.50. Tech shares traded higher as Samsung Electronics gained 1.15% and SK Hynix also gained 1.98%. Chemical shares LG Chem gained 0.89% and cosmetic names Amore Pacific picked up 1.12%. On the currency side, Korean won slightly strengthened throughout the day, closing at 1088.50. It was 0.07% stronger against US dollars from the morning opening, but overall flows have been limited due to end-year season. Japanese yen hovered around 112.66 level, while CNY fixing today was slightly weaker at 6.6162.
So with the week ahead, can you give us the latest rundown on major market events to look forward to this week?
Market focus this week will be on the fate of the U.S. tax reform bill and whether it will be passed by both the House and the Senate before Christmas. We see increased urgency from Republicans given the result of the Alabama Senate election, while Democrats are pushing to delay a vote until Alabama's newly elected Senator, Doug Jones, takes his seat in January. The final details are still unclear. However, the proposed tax changes will not meaningfully alter the U.S. growth trajectory. We also expect central banks in Taiwan, Thailand, and Japan this week. Much of the attention will be paid to the Bank of Japan on Thursday, which is likely to maintain its accommodative stance and keep the 10-year target yield at 0% in the medium term.
All right, then, shifting our focus, where should we keep our eyes on in terms of data releases?
Data focus will be on the U.S. economy this week. We have housing market data released throughout the week, which is likely to turn negative in November. On Tuesday, we have current account data likely to widen its deficits. On Thursday, the final third quarter GDP data will be out, and we expect initial print of 3.3% quarter-on-quarter annualized to be unchanged. On Friday, November PCE core data likely to be closely watched by the market, as well as the University of Michigan Sentiment Index. Over in Asia, Taiwan, Thailand, and Japan will release their November trade data. We expect double-digit export growth in all three countries. Tech orders in Taiwan likely outperformed on demand for mobile and wearable technology, while Japan likely benefited from a weaker Japanese yen. This has been Kathleen Oh for Business Daily.
Bitcoin received another big boost on Sunday after the Chicago Mercantile Exchange began futures trading for the virtual currency. Now, this move comes 1 week after the Chicago Board Options Exchange introduced similar Bitcoin derivatives. Our Park Ji-won has more.
The world's largest derivatives exchange, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, began Bitcoin futures trading from Sunday. The launch of futures trading on the CME comes a week after the Chicago Board Options Exchange, or CBOE, became the first established financial market to offer futures trading for Bitcoin. Analysts say the virtual currency's entry into the Chicago Mercantile Exchange could push its price higher, as the CME is a much bigger exchange than the CBOE, handling 55 times the CBOE's volume during the January to September period this year.
It certainly legitimizes the asset to us being at the exchange, because it now offers people a more traditional way to invest. It also may indicate to people that this really is the kind of asset that you would want to have some percentage of your portfolio or your wealth diversified into.
The market opened at 8 a.m. Korea time. Hoping to guard against wild price swings, the CME will hit pause on trading if prices fluctuate by more than the CME's set limits. Despite some measures to protect investors, skepticism over the cryptocurrency continues, with Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen warning of the dangers of the virtual currency last week.
Bitcoin at this time plays a very small role in the payment system. It is not a stable source of store of value, and it doesn't constitute legal tender. It is a highly speculative asset.
Bitcoin was invented in 2008 by a person or a group calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto, and the identity of the mysterious inventor is still not yet known. Park Ji-won, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, here in Korea, the government is on the move to tax cryptocurrency transactions on concerns of a bubble and speculative investment. Our Kim Mo-kyun tells us more.
The Korean government is pressing ahead with plans to tax cryptocurrency transactions in the country amid concerns of a bubble. The Finance Ministry has created a task force team made up of blockchain experts and National Tax Service officials to discuss how to go about taxing virtual currencies like Bitcoin. They will be looking at taxes on capital gains, income from transfers, and value-added tax. For value-added tax, one question is whether cryptos are classified as currencies, services, or goods. If they go with value-added, then sales of cryptocurrencies on exchanges will be subject to tax, which could create an issue of double taxation. Transfer income tax would require personal information. Given that virtual currencies are now traded anonymously, the task force will also likely discuss related laws and refer to policies from other countries. On December 13th, the Korean government announced its main regulatory policies, such as banning minors and foreigners from investing in cryptocurrencies and a stricter identification process. Such measures come amid the growing craze over Bitcoin and concerns of cyber attacks from North Korea. South Korea has become the world's third largest market in Bitcoin trading after Japan and the US. More than 1 million people in the country are believed to hold at least some Bitcoin, which is equivalent to 1 out of every 50 citizens. Kim Mo-kyun, Business Daily.
As we approach the final countdown to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, the Korean government is working hard to make sure everything runs safely and smoothly. It's conducting a comprehensive inspection of key facilities starting today to ensure the global sporting event is protected from terrorism threats. The government is operating an inter-ministry team comprised of ministry officials and experts that will sweep the Olympic venues and facilities. Also on the radar are people trying to cash in on the event through unethical practices, such as overcharging on accommodations. On top of that, officials will crack down on businesses that reject bookings without a valid reason, while checking the hygiene status of hotels and rental accommodations. For a country with only about 5.5 million people, Finland has a thriving ecosystem of startups. And as they wow the world with their innovative ideas and cutting-edge technology, local tech conglomerates are eyeing further cooperation with the Nordic country. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
At one of Europe's largest tech startup events, Slush, which was held in Finland, thousands of companies are showcasing their products and networking with investors. One Helsinki-based startup that caught the attention of Samsung Electronics is Varjo Technologies, which built an augmented reality headset prototype. Samsung, which already has a 72% share in the global VR device market, says it plans to widen the gap with its competitors by collaborating with promising Finnish startups like Varjo.
So everybody are super excited, and we at Varjo are super excited to demonstrate our human eye resolution VR technology, first time in the world.
The Korean conglomerate says it has already met with over 10 Finnish startups to discuss ways to work together, as Samsung is trying to find ways to reinvent itself from a product-driven company to one that's more data-driven. Slush estimates that funding for startups in Finland have more than tripled from 2011 to some $454 million just last year alone. Hyundai Motor, which is making massive investments to promising Israeli startups, is also turning its attention to a number of Finnish startups as well. Their focus is on organizations like Mass Global that specializes in advanced future automotive technologies.
Actually, we've had discussions with City of Seoul already. The market is really interesting, the technology development and the people that's taking place in Korea is exciting to us, and we would love to bring WIM to Korea as well.
Other Korean tech firms like LG and Naver are also eyeing the small Nordic country home to just 5.5 million people as they strive to discover new sources of future growth for their companies. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
YouTube Kids has been promoted as a safe place for children to search and explore YouTube's contents. But many parents have been shocked to discover that children were still able to access contents unsuitable for kids within the platform. Our Elliot Kim has the story.
YouTube Kids has had its share of controversy since launching in early 2015. This paying subscriber, Mr. Ha, panicked when he opened the service's app on his TV, only to find a cartoon depicting dripping blood. Other suggestive videos are also able to bypass the content filters.
I thought it was a service where children can find what they want to watch, but when I opened it, I was worried by the inappropriate and violent content displayed.
When the service was launched on February 23, 2015, it was touted as an app built for children and child-appropriate entertainment. It was based on an idea to create a platform for children to view YouTube's content without parental supervision. The company had said, parents can rest a little easier knowing that videos in the YouTube Kids app are narrowed down to content appropriate for kids. Just months after its launch, a complaint was filed to the U.S. Federal Trade Commission about content deemed not only disturbing for young children to view, but potentially harmful. Characters familiar to kids were being used as bait to draw children towards inappropriate content. These issues came to the forefront again in June 2016 when The Guardian pointed out that the third most popular channel on the supposedly safe YouTube Kids app was Kids and Tiaras. According to reports, the channel features adults in superhero and princess costumes performing more mature acts. On its official blog, YouTube has released new guidelines for content creators to consider. A YouTube representative told the tech news website Polygon that only 1/5000% of the content on YouTube Kids is considered disturbing and against the company's policies. The Korea Communications Commission also sees this as an issue that needs to be addressed, deciding to tighten regulations on internet operators sharing illegal content.
It's important that we remove obscene material and block access via artificial intelligence and real-time technologies.
From YouTube's perspective, perfect moderation is impossible as 400 hours of video are uploaded every minute, suggesting that parents turn off recommended videos to lower the chance of their children stumbling upon disturbing content. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Coins may be harder to come by here in Korea these days with the ubiquitous use of plastics. But for some economies like France, coinage is still a money-making endeavor. Our Eunice Kim takes a peek.
This man in Beirut, Lebanon, drops a coin or two into a parking meter. What he may not know is that the Lebanese pound coins were minted more than 4,000 kilometers away northwest, in the suburb of Pessac, where the French mint is located.
It's a know-how that's been handed down. We've been doing it for more than 1,150 years, so it's not an ordinary business. The product is not ordinary, and that's what makes our reputation.
Officially founded in the year 864, the Monnaie de Paris is one of the world's oldest running mints. It produces 1.5 million coins each year for some 40 central banks around the world. That includes Thailand. The state, with last year's passing of its beloved King Bhumibol, is designing a new coin. The visage of his successor, his son, will grace the new Thai metal currency. Designs crafted by a French master engraver half a world away.
Being able to tell a whole story in a few centimeters squares on a coin is a feat. And knowing that our creations are circulating in the pockets of people we don't even know, who don't know us either, we're happy about that.
Despite the shift to electronic transactions in many economies around the world, the Monnaie de Paris says it's logging its best performance in a decade and a half. Over the past 2 years, its international currencies division making up 15% of the turnover. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
And that brings us to the end. But we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.